welcome. Gosh, this is going to be really, really loud. Can you guys turn that down, or I'm going to blast them out? Because I'm hard of hearing, so I tend to shout. And perfect, thank you. Anyways, I'm Scott Shappell. For those of you that don't know me, most of you do. I'm delighted to be back here. I'm waking up, and this isn't Vancouver, but it's Vancouver South. We'll think of it that way. And kind of really sprawled out. But welcome to Dallas, Texas. And Texas is one of my adopted states. I went to graduate school just down the road a bit at the University of Texas Medical School and in Galveston. So I'm very fond of the area. I've been to Dallas many times, and I hope you guys have a wonderful stay. Now, mind you, you're going to need at least 2 tanks of gas to go visit anything off of the resort. Because it is sprawled out, but hopefully we'll have some fun here. What I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about decision making and this idea that most of you think you're in command of your own destiny, but you're not. Most of you, even some of the people that are control freaks, think I'm in control of everything. No, you're not. You're being manipulated every day. I'm manipulating you right now. You just didn't even know it. Give me your money. No. But people are asking for your money every day, and you don't get offended. You just don't realize it. And they're taking your money every day. And you may realize it when you get home, but it's like, well, okay. And let me explain. So we're going to talk about aeronautics, and you're wondering, okay, he's talking about taking money, aeronautics, what is this all? Basically what it amounts to is how do you make decisions and what influences those decisions? And this is a very important topic for those of us in aviation. As I tell people now, I spent the last decade of my life in healthcare where decision making happens every second of the day, and we're biased. We're constantly being manipulated. Manipulated by others, manipulated by people that aren't even intending to manipulate you. And I'm not going to go into this, but if you've been to any of our workshops or the last session I taught, we talked a little bit about decision errors and decision making, and this idea that when you make a decision, a conscious choice in life, is based on 3 key ingredients. It's based on the information you're provided, the knowledge to deal with that information, and then experience. And as I tell everybody, experience can cut both ways. You can have too little or you can have too much. And that's kind of more of a textbook version of decision making, and we all make choices. Sometimes we choose well, sometimes we don't choose well. You made choices this morning when you got dressed. Some of us chose well, some of us maybe not so much, right? You know, some of us may be in the same clothes we were in last night, you know, because some of their bags didn't make it. But at any rate, the simple truth is we make choices. And a lot of those choices are kind of dependent upon probability. They don't always work out. They don't work the way we intended, and that's a given. But that's not what we're talking about here. What we're really going to talk about is, are we biased? Do we realize that we're constantly being bombarded and we're constantly being influenced? And we'll come back to that at the very end when we start talking about aviation again. But the simple truth is, you are being bombarded. And let's just start with a couple things. First is the salience bias. I think it's really interesting that the marketers in the world have really globbed onto this and gotten very good at it. They know that humans are attracted to big, bright things, loud, noisy things. If you can be bigger, brighter, louder, noisier, you become more influential. Just kind of look at politics. You know, there's a reason why people that show up in front of the camera every day are the ones that get voted for, and the person you've never heard of, nobody will vote for. And it's the flamboyant ones that are the ones that are attracted. People get attracted. We just naturally are. Now, I will share with you just a little tidbit. That's not always the case. There are 2 types of people in the world, and when I was at UTMB, University of Texas Medical School, and doing my doctoral research, there are these people that we call kind of augmenters and others that are reducers. And let me explain that. So if I were to take some of you, well, all of you in the room, and I put you in front of put some EEG electrodes on you so I can look at your brain a little, your brain activity, and I flash lights at you. And I flash different intensity lights so they get brighter and brighter and brighter, 3 different intensities. Some of you, as I increase the intensity of the light, your brain activity in the occipital cortex gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Others that I flash those higher intensity lights to, the activity of the brain gets lower and lower and lower. So in one case, we have augmenters, people who, when I flash bright lights at them, their brains get bigger and bigger and bigger. Their activity gets larger and larger and larger. And the reducers are the people that when they see things that are more salient, brighter, bigger, bolder, their brains start to shrink. They don't respond as much. Those are reducers. Now, when you look at personalities, and you look at the personality of people, you'll find that people that are augmenters tend to be very gregarious, very outgoing, very extroverted. You find that serial murderers, rapists, people like that, tend to be huge augmenters. And I'm not saying I am, but I'm a huge augmenter because the only thing that separates us from some people that do really stupid stuff and risk takers is intelligence and decision-making, morality. So you'll find that there are certain people in this room, and I could pretty much talk to you and figure out which one you are, whether you're an augmenter or reducer. The augmenters tend to be sensation seekers and tend to be very outgoing and risk takers. The other side of the group are the reducers. These are the introverted people, very shy, quiet, reserved, don't talk a lot, listen a lot. Those people are reducers. Now, why I bring that up is because some of us seek out these salients, this bigger, brighter, bolder. Some of us try and avoid it. Ironically, in aviation, most people are augmenters because we are risk takers. We are sensation seekers. Why that's important is because now, when we start looking at the salience bias, things start to attract us. It's very interesting. Remember when you go shopping at, say, Walmart? When you walk into Walmart, what's the first thing you see, other than the greeter with the cart? What's the first thing you see? Price drop. And what goods do you see right away? If it's like my super Walmart, when I walk in, there's a row of things right here, right away, that I look at. The first thing I look at, I'm looking at those. And usually it's soda, crackers, chips, some sort of theme-based thing, maybe some of their little donuts and stuff because I can't walk past those. And they're basically, that's very pricey territory. They're getting your attention. To the right, you got probably a display up of something, and then you walk in, and what is the most treasured piece of real estate in a supermarket or in a Walmart? What do you think? If you're a manufacturer of goods, where do you want your stuff? On the end cap or in those little islands that you have to walk by and you have to kind of scoot around, and they make them so tight because you're going to have to touch it, right? You're going to have to touch it. And they put it out there, and they tend to get your attention. But let's take that one step further. Let's say you're a cereal company, yeah? And you're going to you're going to make a cereal for kids, a kid's cereal. And call it what you want, but let's face it, we're not very good at this cereal, but we're going to make it, and we've got kind of a crappy cereal. We could call it Crappies or something. But that wouldn't go well. So how do I sell my crappy, bad-for-them cereal to kids? How do I get the kids to pick it up? Put a clown on it. Put colors on it, right? Make it big, bold. We'll name it something. I mean, think about some of the stuff that we fed our kids and that we ate growing up. Count Chocula. First of all, I know, I'm picking on certain people, but yeah. But Count Chocula, loaded with sugar, little marshmallows, and the chocolate milk at the end. And then they had, what was it, Frankenberry was another one. These are all really bad. But we bought them. And we bought them because, wow, Count Chocula. And Count Chocula did not look like Dracula, the real Dracula, because then nobody would buy it, right? It was this clowny-looking Dracula. Even better, what else did they do? Because now everybody has a pretty box and a Tony the Tiger, right? And all this stuff. And I mean, my favorite was always Fruit Loops, But what else did they do when we were growing up? What else did they do to get you to buy that cereal? The toys in the box. Because tell me, honestly, can you look me in the eye and say you didn't go home, open that box up as soon as you got home, stick your hand to the bottom to get that crappy little toy that was gone in a day? You know, and it was nothing. I remember cutting the back of a cereal box off because it had the Archie's little record you put on your, yeah, it's been a long time, guys. And, but yeah, it's crazy what you would do. So we all get, and where do you put the box to sell it? If at the bottom, down here low or middle, you don't put it up here. You want it somewhere where they can annoy the crap out of their parents, right? I want this, I want this. And half the time the kids don't know what it is. It's just that it attracted them and they want it. And you're like, no, you wouldn't like that. That's made out of dog poop. What? Yeah, they'll believe anything. But so, yeah, you just got to be creative, right? So, anyways, let's now make a cereal for adults, right? So let's make something. Think about the worst possible thing you can name a cereal. We're going to call it grape nuts. First of all, when I think grape nuts, I'm thinking the seeds in a grape. How many of you sit around going, you know what? I'm going to go home tonight and have some grape seeds. What? Because they're bitter. Who wants, we buy seedless grapes for a reason, because we don't want to go spitting out the seeds everywhere. But we're going to sell a cereal, and we're going to call it grape seeds, essentially. We're calling it grape nuts. I've never heard of a grape nut. But we're going to call it grape nuts. And by the way, we're going to make this cereal so hard, you have to soak it in milk for 3 days to soften it so you can eat it. And it's going to have no taste, so we're going to make sure you have to put a pound of sugar in just to kind of take the edge off. How are you going to sell that crap? And they've sold millions of it. So imagine being the marketing agent that's given this crap sandwich to eat. It's like, come on, you can do it. We know you. We've paid millions for this. Help us sell grape nuts. And so the guy's sitting there going, let's just make the box white. Oh, that was real creative. So if you think about the grape nuts box, what's unique about the grape nuts box? It looks like a generic box, does it not? I mean, there's nothing fancy. So they didn't do anything with the box to get you. They didn't like say, this will say, it's like Wheaties. What do they do with Wheaties? If you eat Wheaties without putting anything on it, you're weird, okay? Wheaties is nothing more than Frosted Flakes without the sugar, right? Wheaties by itself tastes like crap. So how do you sell Wheaties to people and get them to eat it? You show Olympic champions. You show athletes, and wow, look, I could be just like that. You know, and so you sell it, you market it. But grape nuts, they couldn't do that. Maybe the box wasn't big enough. I don't know. But they didn't. They had this. So now how am I going to sell this dang stuff? Did you ever think about that? How did they sell it? Those of you guys that are older in the room, who marketed grape nuts? Remember the guy? Walking through the woods. Yule Gibbons. He used to eat tree bark. Yeah, and he looked like he was 150 years old, talking about how I'm going to live forever, eating grape nuts. Because the guy eats bark. And, okay, people bought it because it was bigger, brighter, bolder. They started marketing the snot out of it. The next thing you knew, your grandpa was eating it, then grandpa passed it to your dad, and now you've got it in front of you, not knowing what you're going to do with it, so you use it as an eraser on the gravel. And, you know, it's... The point I'm trying to make is that you're constantly bombarded with stuff that isn't necessarily good for you. I'm not saying grape nuts isn't good for you, but you're bombarded with things that you don't need, that isn't good for you, but you buy. And you guys are reasonable people. I suspect no one in this room is a multimillionaire. Maybe if you are, great, good for you, you're buying dinner. But the truth is, most of us are normal, middle-class working adults that go to the grocery store with a plan. Why is it you always come out with more than what your plan was? When was the last time you went into Lowe's or the grocery store or a department store and got exactly what you needed, nothing more? Yeah. My favorite thing is when my wife Cindy, calls me up and says, I saved $40 at Kohl's today, and I got $20 of Kohl's cash. And I'm like, okay, wow. How much did you spend? Well, only $120, but it would have been $160, but I saved $40 and I got 20 Kohl's cash. So it's like I got it half price. Wow, sounds like you paid the right price. That's what they do. So it's a salience bias. This happens to us in aviation all the time. We get caught up in the bigger, the brighter, the bolder the things, the gizmos, the devices in our aircraft. We get caught up in the airport environment with all the lights going off. Things grab our attention. I lost my clicker. Oh, there we go. So the salience bias is one of those things that we see a lot of. The other one is as if heuristic. It's this idea that we treat everything as if it's true. Isn't that interesting? We treat everything as if, wow, this could happen. It's as if it really exists. You listen to the news, and because it's some commentator, or it's CBS or ABC or Fox or MS, you believe it. You believe it. Isn't that interesting? That you believe what you hear from people that you respect, and you treat everything they say as if it were true. I mean, hate to break it to you folks, but it's not. It's not. How many times have we seen time and again where they're trying to manipulate their audience? All of them are. None of them are innocent. They're trying to get you in because the goal is to attract the people that love what they do, and then they just keep spooning it out. And you tend to treat it as if it's real. And you start basing it, you get all this information. It's amazing to me how I'll have conversations. We all have political conversations. I'm not going to have one here. But we all will sit down at a dinner table and start talking politics, and we'll start citing off. I bet you right now, if you're from the U.S., you can cite the talking points for either side of the fence, the Dems or the Republicans. I bet you can do it right now, none of which is probably true. It's all just talking points. And we get hit with that, and we treat it as if it's real. Same thing happens in aviation. We see stuff, and we treat it as if everything that we're getting is the real. We don't look for backups. We don't look for redundant signs. We don't look for things to ensure that we've got the right idea. Here's one that's kind of interesting, the representative heuristic. This says that you're gonna make decisions based on your previous beliefs, what's represented, the typical pattern in your head. You get this idea of what life should be like, and you're going to treat things with that. So let me give you an example. They did a study where they looked at children, offspring, for families with 6 children in this large city, okay? So they were only interested in families with 6 children. And they found out that 72 of the families they studied had the exact birth order of girl, boy, boy, girl. 72 of the families. Based on that information and the fact that this was a large city, what is your estimate of how many families would have the birth order boy, girl, boy, boy? What do you think? What would you hazard a guess? What do you think, high or low? Where would you expect the birth order? How many families? Lower? Higher? How many think it's higher? How many think it's lower? It's exactly the same. Think about this. It doesn't, because they're not connected. I could say, boy. The simple truth is, each birth is not dependent on the first birth before it. The fact that you had 4 girls in a row, if Doug Wigman were here, he had 4 girls in a row. They wanted a boy. Finally, they got one on the 5th try. I tried to give them the recipe, but they wouldn't listen. But the fact is that the fact that you had a girl last time doesn't give you any more chance of getting a girl this time. They're independent. It's kind of like when I take my wife to Vegas. She loves to play roulette, which is, by the way, the worst game you could play. It's the worst odds in the house. And how many of you have been to Vegas lately, and seen the roulette wheel? All right? Roulette wheel's there, and right next to it they have that pole with the numbers that have hit, red and black. My wife plays that pole. She'll come up to me and say, quick, give me $100, give me $100. I'm like, why? It's going to hit black. I know it's going to hit black. I'm like, how would you know? Because see, it's been a string of red. It's black's due. And she'll go, boom, 100 on black. Now, sometimes she wins, sometimes she loses, which makes the argument go on forever. But the simple truth is that I pulled her aside and said, honey, really? Come on. You're an educated woman. You're smarter than this. Do you think that the casino, if it was going to give you an advantage, that they would show that to you? Are you serious? Let me go to that casino that does that because I'm going to go play blackjack and ask the dealer to show me her cards before I make a decision. I mean, they're not going to do that. It's not going to give you an advantage. What it's doing is it's buying into the gambler's fallacy, this idea that because it's the lucky streak. I don't know if any of you play Texas Hold'em or anything, but I have sat at Texas Hold'em tables with people who are in the hot chair. That chair's hot. That chair's hot. It's been hitting. Wow, eights are hot on this table today. Really? Wow, wonderful. You're bright. I'm going to play against you. And yeah, because I'm going to take your money because you're not being smart. But we do this. It's a natural thing. We tend to make decisions based on our beliefs and what's represented in our head. The availability heuristic. What's available to you, this is the other thing. One of the problems when we make decisions is we only have a limited number of things available to us, right? So we don't know everything about everything. Some of us say we do, particularly when we've been drinking too much, but the fact is we don't know everything about everything. When you make decisions and when you recall things, you tend to bring things back that are most available to you, that you're used to doing. For example, is the letter K more likely to appear in the first position of a word or the third position of a word? So in other words, is the letter K, like in kite, K-I-T-E, more likely to be in the first position or the third position of cake, C-A-K-E? What do you think? Better yet, let's just do a test. And this is the interactive part, right? Okay? So give me some words that begin with the letter K and don't use cat, okay? One of my grad students did that. I'm like, really? Okay. Give me some words that begin with K. What? Kaleidoscope? You're going to be the one that when it's the third says, acknowledge. And I'm like, I give up. Jeez Louise. Wow. Well, you ain't from around here, I can tell. Because everything's two syllables only. More than that, it's not going to work. But no. So the fact of the matter is, what do you think? I'll just ask you. Which do you think is more common? Which one do you think has more? If you were to go out there and look at words in the English dictionary, which will you find more words that begin with K or have the third letter K? Turns out it's a trick. It's the third letter. It turns out that because what's available to us, we have grown up in the English system and a dictionary that organizes the dictionary by the first letter. We're used to lining up in school based on the first letter of our last name. We're used to organizing things by the first letter of a word. We're not used to doing it by the third. Can you imagine going into a kindergarten class and saying, okay, class, we're going to line up by the third letter of your last name? There would be chaos. You know, people would be making up the spellings of their names. Everybody would have one of those like Russian names that have three, consonants at the beginning. The third one will be N. Well, I guess A is not a consonant. That's a vowel. Anyways, they'll come up with something. The whole point here is that that's not the way we think. So we're going to get things based on the way we think. So when we try and make decisions in the cockpit, it's what's available to us. It's very predictable. That's why we train people all the time on emergencies, because we want the predictable to be expected and to be the right answer. Confirmation bias, this is one, I love this one. I've spent a lot of time working in this area because we tend to make decisions quickly. We don't mess around. Somebody asks us to decide, honey, when I get asked, where do you want to eat dinner? My first response is, well, wherever you'd like, honey. Because that's the right answer. But if you really want to know, hey, I could go for a juicy steak. Did you really need that? Yeah. Oh, okay. So we're not going. Or it's, I want to go get a steak. It's, I don't want a steak tonight. Okay. Well, where would you like to go? The point being is that we will stick with, it's like politics. I can tell you it's really interesting. If you don't like former President Obama, no matter what I say about him, if you don't like him, there's not going to change your mind. Trump, if you like him, no matter what I say on the other side, it doesn't matter, you're not going to change your mind. People make up their mind, and then they migrate to those people that confirm what they already believe. So if you happen to be a Republican, what station do you think you watch? Fox News. If you happen to be Democratic, what do you watch? Everything else. Yeah. That's my little political humor for the moment. But what's interesting is people will make up their mind quickly, even in the face of contrary information. They'll stick to it. I mean, it is funny that, more stuff comes out in our political world, and we're like, wow, again? And there's still diehards out there. So I want to show you a video of confirmation, a classic confirmation bias. Let's see if I can get this thing to work here. Oops. Okay. So let's make it bigger. And
this is the venue they chose for their fake auditions for an advert for lip balm.
We're hoping that we can use part of this in a national commercial, right? And this is a test on some lip balms that we have over here.
Yeah.
And these are our models who are going to help us, Roger and Matt.
Okay.
And we have our own lip balm, and we have a leading brand.
Okay.
Would you have any problem kissing our models to test them? You wouldn't?
No.
You think that was fine?
That would be fine.
Okay. So that this is a blind test, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and put a blindfold on. Okay, now can you see anything?
No.
Hold up so you can't even see down.
Okay.
It's completely blind now,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Now what I'm going to be looking for in this test is how soft it makes the lips, okay, the texture, right, and maybe if you can discern any flavor or not.
Okay.
Have you ever done a kissing test before? You excited? Take one step in. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to pucker up big, and lean in just a little bit, okay? Okay. All right. Okay. And Jennifer, how did that feel?
Good. Oh my
all right, let's see if I can kill that here. Hang on. Cancel that. We don't need to hear the rest of them. All right, so the idea here is that what ends up happening is, I'd like to believe that most guys don't kiss like monkeys, but the truth is they were expecting to be kissing these beautiful models. And I could see my daughter falling right into that. That's just because she's made up her mind. She's going to get to kiss this gorgeous guy, and it doesn't matter what it tastes like, smells like, feels like. It's good. It's kind of, yeah, I could see that because it's confirmation bias. It happened, I did an accident many years ago now. It was back when I was on active duty. It was an F-18 Hornet. So if you can imagine, you've got a young Hornet pilot taking off out of Oceana, and it's just a normal routine training flight. As he takes off, down the right side of the aircraft goes a flock of turkey buzzards, big, big birds. And immediately after that, he gets an engine warning, and that one of the engines is eating itself. Which engine does he shut down? He shuts down the one on the right side where the turkey buzzard just went down. It turns out it was the left engine. It had nothing to do with the turkey buzzard. So now he's a $40 million glider. He's got neither engine working, so he obviously tries to direct the aircraft away from civilization, punches out of the aircraft, it crashes. He survives. They then take him to what we call a Field Naval Aviator Evaluation Board, a bad boy board. And they basically are going to drum him out, that he had made such a foolhardy mistake to shut down the operating engine. When in fact, in the Hornet, you have all kinds of other indications that which engine is bad and how to shut it down. You've got a computer helping you right there. But he was at about 600, 700 feet, and just at the initial stages of climb out, and he had to make a choice, and he chose poorly. They were ready to say, this is a bad pilot. He's a junior pilot. He's not going to make it. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. This is a classic case of confirmation bias. He sees turkey buzzards go down the right side. It was verified that there were turkey buzzards in the area. He has an engine out. It's natural, and the story makes sense. Well, why didn't he go look at his secondaries? Well, because it was confirmation bias. Well, no pilot worth his salt would ever do that. I said, great, let's run a simulation. So I ran 10 experienced pilots through the simulation, 7 of which did the same thing. It happens. And by the way, just so you know, it's also got some gender specificity to it. Men tend to be more entrenched than women. Men tend to make a decision and you'll stick to it to the bitter end. How many of you have seen situations, maybe your own, where people just won't let go and won't give in, won't apologize, they're just stuck on it. They're stuck on it, and you won't move them because confirmation bias. They will keep bringing examples to you of how they're right, you're wrong, when in fact, no, the moon didn't explode last week. They just can't get it through their coconut. The anchoring heuristic. Now that OJ is about to be released, this is kind of appropriate. Yeah. We tend to believe the first thing we hear. We tend to put a lot of weight on the very first. When we hear about something the first time, you tend to put a lot of weight on it. The first time that you hear, your son got in trouble, he got in a fight, or you hear problems at school, or you hear about a car accident, or you hear the things you hear first, you tend to glob onto. It's a little different than confirmation bias, because unlike confirmation bias, where now you go seek things to confirm what you believe, in this case, it just stays there. Think of it like opening arguments in a court trial. If you ask any lawyer, the most important moments of a trial are opening arguments and closing arguments. First and last thing that jury's going to hear. All the garbage in the middle, it's pretty much just mundane stuff. And a lot of it goes right past the jury. But that opening argument and the closing argument tell the tale. Yeah. It's called the anchoring heuristic. And for instance, if we look at OJ, what's the famous thing that got OJ off the murder? If it doesn't fit, you must acquit, right? And by the way, he was guilty. Don't know if you knew that, but they had the forensic evidence out the wazoo. I do a lot of work out at LA County, and there was no question what had happened. None. But how did they flip it? What did they do? Yeah. Basically, they just laid it out there and said, oh, it's racism. Oh, it's the forensic lab. They were mishandling stuff. and they put such a cloud around things. And then when the glove didn't fit, I don't know if you guys have ever put on leather gloves, but I can take a leather glove that fits me and make it look like it doesn't. I can make my hand expand a little. Oh, especially the tight-fitted, form-fitting leather gloves. Yeah, they're always tight at first, and then they kind of loosen up. Yeah, classic example. We see this, Doug Wigman, who's not here, did a study where it was a simulation study where he was looking at instrument-rated pilots, and the question was whether or not they were not instrument-rated, they were just daytime VFR pilots, and he was questioning whether or not they would proceed and press through the weather, kind of looking at the get-home-itis thing, and he was putting the weather between point A and point B at different spots. And he would give them a weather report, and the weather report was saying clear in a million. And then he would have them take off. And they would take off in the aircraft in this very nice simulator, and they would take off, and he varied where it came, but then these people would come upon the weather that they weren't supposed to penetrate, and the question was how many did. A large percentage did, but even when he moved the weather all the way back to the very beginning. So you might expect as you get it closer to your destination, you get the get-home-itis thing, where people are going to press through to get to their destination. We're almost there sort of thing. But even if you put it like 5 minutes after takeoff and started putting the weather in, they still penetrated it. And when asked why, they said, well, the weather report said it was going to be clear. If you think I'm making that up, go to the NTSB database, and you'll see it littered with people that lived to tell about it. Oh, I thought it was going to be clear. The weather report said it was clear. You're looking at it, son. It's not clear, and you're there. Framing. Oh, wow, this is another really good one. So this is very interesting because the way I frame something, the way I portray something will impact your decision making. For example, let's say, actually, you can't keep it, but I'm going to see if I got some money here. All right. I come to you and I say, here's $140. And then right away, I take 100 back. And I tell you, if you want to win this 100, you have to spin this roulette wheel and guess red or black. Okay? If you guess right, I'll give you the 100. If you guess wrong, I'm going to take the 40 from you. This guy, I'm coming over here, and I'm saying, here's $40. I got another 100. Yeah, I know. And I'm saying to you, if you want to win this 100, you can take a gamble on my roulette wheel, red or black. If you guess right, you get the 100. If you guess wrong, I get the 40 back. Who's more likely to gamble? Him? Yeah. He's more likely to gamble because it's called a loss scenario. People tend to gamble when they're losing. You will walk away with it. Not only I can tell, because you're the kind of guy that will. In fact, let me count that. You might have sleight-of-handed me there. No. People because it's like, wow, I just got $40. Okay, thank you, see you, bye. I don't care about the other 100. I ain't risking it because I could use the $40. In your case, and that's a gain scenario. A gain scenario, people walk away happy. The loss scenario, people will gamble. They will increase their risk because you had your hands, and I usually, if this were for real, I'd let you hang on to that 140 for a while, and you're looking at that $100 bill. The 220s mean nothing at this point, but that $100 bill, and then I'm like, but wait a minute. Let me take the 100 from you. And so now I've introduced a loss scenario and see if he'll gamble. And he'll gamble almost every time. And 50% of the time he'll win, the other percent of the time he won't. But the point being that when you're confronted with a loss scenario, you're going to take risks. How does that play out in aviation? Well, there are many times, some of you have probably flown on rescue. Some of you have been in EMS helicopters, some of you have been with the Coast Guard. When you tell a Coast Guard pilot in the U.S. Coast Guard that there's people in the water, they know right away that there's a limited survival window now. If they're not on board a boat or hanging on and able to float, you have a very limited window. So they know if they don't get there, those people die. Are they more or less likely to take risks? I think it's very obvious. They will take risks. In fact, it got so bad up in Alaska, they had a motto, kind of an unwritten motto, you have to go out, but you don't have to come back. They had a number of rescues that turned into being dual rescues because the crew got out there, they were on bingo fuel, they got past bingo fuel, but they stayed on station to save the people, to drop the boats, and now we've got 2 rescues going on. We lost the helicopter. In some cases, we lost the crew. People pressing the envelope, trying to get there, trying to do the right thing. You see this all the time. When you present a loss scenario to somebody, when I present to an aircraft, to an airline, I present a loss scenario. If you don't get those people there on time, our airline's going to fold. We are an on-time airline. If you don't get them there on time, you're going to have your pay docked. You're going to lose points, whatever those points are worth. It becomes a loss scenario, and people will go to the nth degree to get there. When you present things as a loss to anybody, we don't like to lose. We don't like to lose. And one of the things that's very dangerous within our world in aviation is when people present loss scenarios. You don't mean to put the pressure on them, or maybe you do. But the simple truth is, I've seen situations where you're not going to fly this, I'll find somebody that will. What are you going to do? You're going to fly it. And now we lose the crew. And then you find they're scrambling after that. Oh, well, I didn't mean that they were supposed to take unnecessary risks. Yes, you did. Whether you meant it or not, that's what it did. Because people will go and they'll risk everything. They'll risk everything. You got to be very, very careful. Presenting things in a gain scenario is a much different situation. How many times, as I've grown older, I can tell you for what it's worth. In the old days, I used to take the red eye just to get home. Now, I don't care. I'll get there when I get there. I used to be the guy when I was in my 20s and 30s that would go up to the gate agent and complain because we were delayed. I'm going to miss my connection. I'm going to miss my connection, and I've got to get there. Like somehow I'm the most important person on the planet. I don't care anymore. I'll get there when I get there. It's not going to change anything. And I think what happens is people look at it when you present somebody with a loss scenario, it's a problem. Here's another classic. I know you guys have seen the videos of the people that have been pulled off the airline flights. You've seen the one with the lady that gets dragged by the hair and everything. First of all, I got to tell you, this is just your Uncle Scott, all right? Just words of wisdom from your Uncle Scott, because I do a lot of work with Delta and other airlines. Here's the deal. If they come to you and say, I need you, you're going to have to step off the flight, we're going to need your seat, you're going to leave. You're not on the flight now. You won't be going. You have 2 choices. You can either be on the TSA blacklist the rest of your life because they're going to yank you off, or you can go peacefully and get a nice reward at the end. Imagine instead of going up to that young lady and saying, or the man, I think it was a guy, wasn't it? The Asian guy, the doctor was going, oh my gosh, that was horrible. Horrible what they did. If they had went up to him and said, gee, Dr. So-and-so, I am so sorry. We have made a critical mistake. I apologize. We're going to give you $4,000 to step off the flight. You would have had 10 people around him going, pick me, pick me. I'll do it. It would have been so easy to diffuse. It cost them millions. It cost them millions, but by couching it as a gain scenario, I know you need to get where you're going. We're going to get you on the very next flight, I promise. But we're going to give you $4,000 in vouchers, and we're going to give you lunch. Whatever. You'll have people jumping out of their seats for that deal, myself included. And I don't care where I need to be. So I'm late for my grandpa's funeral. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. So framing matters. How we frame things matters. This is a very big deal. Sunk cost, the last one we're going to talk about here, is the more invested you are in something, the more likely you will continue. This is a tragic one in aviation. We see this play out so many times where people get so invested in the flight, they're almost there. How many times have you had situations where you're driving home at night and you're just teetering on consciousness? You're like, oh my gosh, I am so tired. And you're barely awake. You're like, I can't wait to get home and take a nap. Oh, and you just press on, press on, press on. You are dangerous, but I'm so close. I'm almost there. And we all know the truth. The vast majority of accidents happen within 20 miles of your home. Now, that's because most of your driving is in that range. But nevertheless, it's a big problem. In aviation, we see people all the time, we read the stories of how people pressed through the wicked weather because they just wanted to get there. We see people so invested in things, over-invested in it, that they can't get out. I play poker. I'm a big-time poker player. And I play poker 3-4 times a week. And I've been in poker games where somebody is on tilt. They basically are invested in a pot. I know they're beat. They know they're beat, but they just can't get out of it. They've already got $300 in there. They've got $200 behind it. They just can't get away from it. And you got them. You know, it's just, it kills me to watch it. And you watch it all the time. People that get so invested, they become pot invested. They got so much money invested, they can't get away from it. We see this play out all the time in life. At the end of the day, there are a number of biases that affect the way we think and the way we make decisions. And just to kind of recap and call it a day here. People tend to give an undue amount of weight to early evidence or information. We tend to overvalue the first things we hear. I would encourage you, I'm not saying question authority and all that kind of crazy stuff. I'm saying question, back it up, make sure you've got time. Humans are generally conservative and do not extract as much information from sources as they should. We don't look deep enough. We read the headline and that's it. There are people that make millions just writing headlines to get your attention. A lot of times they're counting on you not to read the rest. Read it. Odds in favor of one alternative over another are not assessed to be as extreme or given as much confidence as they should. Sometimes we need to look at the odds. Sometimes we need to consider what's our situation here a little better. As more information is gathered, people become more confident but not more accurate. This is very interesting because we would like to believe as we do research that we learn more, and as we get more information, we're more right. The truth is, not necessarily. Depends on where your sources are, and it comes back to that confirmation bias thing. Humans tend to seek out more information than they can absorb adequately. Most of us, I don't know if you guys are like me, I'm a news junkie. I look at Drudge Report, then I go look at Huffington Post, then I go look at USA Today, then I go look at Politico, I'm looking at everything. And it's like, I can't possibly remember all that stuff. People often treat information as if it were reliable. This is a big one. If you learn nothing else, question. When you have the time, ask the question. Humans appear to have a limited ability to entertain a maximum of no more than a few, 3 or 4 hypotheses at a time. When it comes to display technology and designing things, designing emergency scenarios and alternatives and options, don't give people a lot of options. This is your kids. If you ask your kids, where do you want to go to dinner tonight, and you have 4 kids, you're getting 4 answers. One wants to go to McDonald's, the other one wants to go to Burger King, one wants to go to Chick-fil-A, the other one wants to go to Taco Bell. We're going to Taco Bell because Dad likes that. You know, the point is, don't give them the options. 2 options. You want to go to Burger King or McDonald's. Gets real simple then. People tend to focus on only a few critical attributes at a time because there are only about 2 to 4 possible choices ranked highest, blah, blah, blah. People tend to seek information that confirms their chosen course of action. Confirmation bias. Losses are viewed as of greater importance than gains of the same amount. We don't like to lose. If you're couching things as a loss, if you're presenting something, if you're going to somebody and asking them to make a decision, and you say, if you don't do this, you will lose X, they're going to do it. Believe me. Believe me. And I see this play out in relationships. I see this this is the classic relationship one. You know, if you do this, your kids are going to leave you. You're not going anywhere because you don't want to lose your kids. That's biasing. That's controlling. People believe that mildly positive outcomes are more likely than either mildly negative or highly positive outcomes. Nobody believes we're good. How many of you actually believe you're going to win the lottery? How many of you have played the lottery? Okay, so think how silly this is. You know you're not going to win, but you can't win if you don't play. Remember that motto? You can't win if you don't play. Yeah, okay. So you play. Most of us are playing because we know we have a chance to win 20, 30, we've won 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. And that's just enough to keep us coming back. And, and we're all into that big Powerball thing. I love Powerball is the biggest scam on the planet. It's right there next to Publishers Clearinghouse, all right? Have you ever seen the $1 million truck come with Publishers Clearinghouse? I've never met these people. I don't think they exist. But the simple truth is that we don't tend to believe that big, great things are going to happen or bad things are going to happen. We tend to be generally positive. Oh, yeah, I'm going to win I'll probably win 10 bucks. Yeah, I'm not going to play the lottery if I think I'm definitely going to lose everything. People tend to believe that highly negative outcomes are less likely than mildly negative. Most people don't think they're going to die. I don't know any pilots that take off saying, I'm going to die today, unless they're in combat. I've never met anybody like that, and if I do, I don't want to fly with them. Normal adults, normal people don't believe bad things are going to happen. But you know what? We're safety professionals. We know they do. Our job is to take people, make them aware of these biases in their life, help them manage their decisions so that they don't die. With that, I'll take questions. Any questions? Good, I biased you because if you ask a question, you'll die. Oh no, that would be, you don't like to lose. Oh no, yeah, if you don't ask a question, you'll get $1 million. Yeah, no. Thank you so very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully I'll see you later.